Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Wednesday, January 17th. So I thought today we would talk about more about tools, like acquiring tools and where to acquire tools. And Jason does have a point because I literally I was laughing out loud when I saw that comment because I was thinking it as well. Because when I edited, I'm like, am I this disorganized? And when Jason was saying about, saving time, I thought, well, shoot. So I asked Claude. Claude said, well, I don't put my tools back all the time. I don't have certain spots. He said, I know where my tools are. He said, it's called organized chaos. Remember that term. All right. Be right back. All right. So welcome back. So Claude was telling me, because he is a mechanic. All right. You know, I'm maybe you can call me an apprentice. I mean, I can do quite a bit of stuff. But most of the stuff that I do, you could train a monkey to do, right? But anyhow, I asked him because I see his tools all over the shop out there. So I said, what the guys are telling me on my channel is we need to get more organized. And he goes, why? I said, well, it's going to save us time. And he asked, how is it going to save us time? And I said, well, if you know where your tools are and you got it nice and clean and you just pick it out. And his response is, every mechanic is different. And you could tell a good mechanic from a so-so mechanic and one that is trying to look like a mechanic and one being a mechanic. He said a lot of times if you want to talk about saving time, because we have multiples of everything in the tool chest out in the shop. And he's been known to come in and grab tools out of my toolbox. Because I want them all anyway, so. But he'll start working on this project here. And I'll notice that he'll leave like certain sockets, a wrench, and that while he's waiting for parts, there's tools sitting there next to that job that he was working on. And then I see there's tools over here on this job that he was working on that now he's waiting for more parts for that one. And he's over here on the third one working on that. And told him, I said, we're very disorganized. You've got tools everywhere here in the shop. And we could save time. And he's like, no, I'll leave my tools over there because I know where they are if I need them. But you're talking about saving time. How much time would you spend taking those tools, putting them back in the toolbox, getting them all nice and clean and spiffy, and then have to go back to the toolbox, get them out, and then take them back over to the job that you're working on to finish that job? He said, actually, by leaving my tools there, I'm saving us time. You gotta love him. You do. Because he's got an answer for everything. And then my son stopped, and we got into a three-way discussion because he is a mechanic, is just like Claude. And he is like a lot of you guys, especially you, Jason. I mean, his Mac box is 3 times the size of what mine is. But he's making a living in a Ford garage with it. And he's got to have specialty tools. He works on a lot of the diesels, the 7.3s, 6.0s, 6.4s. So, I mean, he's got to have the right tools. And when you're working in an automobile shop, you got to have the code readers. You got to have the testers. Just on and on, right? So he said that his basic tools, hand tools, would all fit into my toolbox neatly. But the rest of it is just, for his specialty tools that he has bought, that at the end of the shift at night he can lock up and then go home. But he said that in their shop, they're required to have everything, no tools laying around here and there. If you're not using it, put it back. So he agreed with you guys. Definitely one thing, I do need to get more organized. And I went over to Tractor Supply last night. And I was looking for stuff to organize. Hey, girls. Things to organize my toolbox better. And they had like plier, holders, magnetic strips. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to check online too today. And maybe you guys can leave some links or some suggestions in the comments of certain organizational tools that will fit. And I was thinking about taking my big draw on the top of the bottom shelf there, and making that all my sockets, like all my from 1/2 inch to 3/8 to 1/4 inch, and then having room in there to put my ratchets, my extensions, and all that. I don't know if that'll work or not. But like Amos was talking, I would never encourage anybody to go out and spend the stupid money on tools. All right? I'm 61. I've had a long time to acquire them. And what you find out is guys that are into, fix it and try to do it yourself it, and especially running a shop, the tendency is, if you see a new gadget, a lot of guys will buy it. Whereas I'm not that way. I don't need to have the latest new thing. Where do I buy the majority of my tools? Over the years, not just recently, over the years. And I've gone to auctions. That's where I got a lot of my extra Craftsman stuff for the toolbox. My wife bought me a complete set through Craftsman one year, and from that point, it was a standard set. It had the hand wrenches, screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, mixed podge of sockets, but there wasn't a super lot in the set. But I can remember going to a couple auctions where a lot of Craftsmen, because a lot of guys locally, the older guys had Craftsmen, and going to their auctions and buying them for pennies on the dollar, We don't have a pawn shop up here like Amos is talking, but that is a good place to look. People get hard up for money, and what they sell whatever they have. The other place that I've found tools over the years is clearance. I'm always interested in saving money, right? And Tractor Supply will sit on something for so long, and they'll discount it to get rid of it. And same thing goes for Walmart. They'll just continue carrying a certain brand, and they'll half off, 3/4 off, I bought tools that way. And other good places are like eBay. Hey, enough. It's like eBay and Amazon. I bought plenty of tools off from there that were Craftsman and then specialty tools. The ones that, were like my carburetor cleaning kit, that has the adjustable jets on the carburetors for your small engine, for your chainsaws and weed eaters. As a dealer, I can buy a complete set, but one of each every year. That's it. So if I go on to, I think I got them on Amazon. The tool that like for each one was like $11 through Oregon. And again, they would only send just so many of each style. And there's like 7 or 8 different styles for adjusting the carburetors. But I went over to Amazon, and here's these Chinese sellers that are selling complete kits with brushes and everything else on top of every tool in it for like $10, $12. Why would I pay $11 for one when I can get the complete set with the case? Now, the case that they came in was kind of crappy as far as I'm concerned. The case you see me with that has carburetor tools in, that was a case I got somewhere else at an auction or somewhere that I found that said, hey, I could use that to put all my carburetor adjusting tools in and keep them so I know where they are, right? But I want to emphasize that when I was in my 20s and 30s and when I was first starting into it, that was the farming years. I had to carry a lot of the tools on hand on the farm, because we really didn't have a lot of extra money to hire it done. So, boil it down to, you learned how. And at that time, I was blessed to have a father-in-law that he was a old school mechanic, especially when it came to farm, because he had a dairy farm of his own. He was raised on a dairy farm with his dad, mom, and they had to fix everything. So, it goes back to when it comes to fixing small engine and stuff, back when I was getting into farming on my own. Now, granted, I went to a 2-year college, and part of that college for ag was, repairing equipment. And we spent most of our time in class. Like the local New Holland dealership would send over a couple crates, and we'd have to put it all together for them. And it wasn't really fixing, it was just assembling, And they didn't teach you a lot when it came to how to, they gave you the basics of how to approach something, like a procedure type thing. But when it came to actually diagnosing and fixing an issue, they didn't. So my father-in-law was a godsend. And in that, like I tell you guys, you need to have time to get experience. And then when you learn from your experiences, you get wisdom. And the shortcut, or I hate to say shortcut, the quickest way to gain more wisdom is from someone else's experiences. And that would be my father-in-law at that time. If I had a nodder on a baler that wasn't working right, the man was phenomenal. He could fix anything. Everything from the nodders to the tie to the kicker not working right, the hydraulic systems, tractors. And he had his own workshop on his farm. Everything, he was a self-taught welder, torches. He had 2 or 3 different toolboxes right full of tools. And he told me, he said, that's one thing you're going to have to do, Eric. If you're going to farm it, you can't afford to have somebody come in and constantly fix your crap, all right? There's just not that kind of money on running a dairy farm. And at the time I was running, I think, 60 head of milkers. And they were running on their farm, my in-laws' farm. They had 30 or 35. But he said, you need to have the right tool for the right job. And he had a lot of the S&Ks. He had bought quality tools, and he also inherited his father's tools, okay? Hand-me-downs of what his father, because his father worked on all their own stuff as well. But he taught me a lot when it comes to working on diesels, working on gas jobs, how to bleed a diesel, the injection pump up to the injectors. And when I first started on that farm, I might have had enough tools to put in a little toolbox that you carry with your hand. Not a lot of tools. I mean, very little. And that was one of the first things that I started investing in. And I would sit there at the kitchen table in the old farmhouse, and I would look through Harbor Freight's mail order catalog. And every month I would add some things to it. My father-in-law, because I would go to him with a catalog, It was worse than a kid with Christmas. You're circling things. What do you think about this? And he'd give the yay or nay. So you don't need that right now. It'd be nice to have, but you don't need it. And with the two of us working together, he was the mechanic. I was the apprentice farmer, okay? In all honesty, I thought I knew everything because I was young and dumb, but I didn't. And even to this day, I don't know everything. But what he had me do in the beginning was, he said, look, there's certain tools that I could use that I can't afford right now. But you can. And instead of buying all these other tools that I already have, how about you invest in some of the tools that I don't have that we both could use, and we'll go from there. And that's how I got started with Harbor Freight. I was buying specialty tools, pullers that he didn't have, that he wished he could have. And instead of me going out and buying a whole set of half-inch drive or this or that, I would buy a set of pullers. And they were there anytime he needed them, or if I needed them. And most of the jobs at that time, he helped me with. And that's how, with Claude, that's how I met Claude. I was running a farm for another guy, and he lived across the road. And he was the same way, he was self-taught when it come to the diesel tractors and stuff. And he would come over and help me work on the equipment when it was broke down. And I learned a lot from him, and he's been my best friend ever since. When I moved out this way and bought the farm here, he and his wife, there was a lot, half an acre or something, and they were living out where the farm that I worked at, and they had a trailer out there. And he asked, about that lot. Could he move if he put a brand new trailer there? Because his kids had grown up. For him and his wife, could they eventually buy the lot? But could they move a trailer onto it for now? And there was no question there. Absolutely. They moved the trailer in, and he and his wife moved in. Beautiful people, Maryland. And he's been my farm mechanic and my mentor when it comes to working on stuff ever since. And he helps me still to this day with all aspects of the farm. And in return, he gets beef, because we do our own butchering here. And if we do our own, he gets half a cow. And if somebody wants to buy a half a cow and have it processed, then I just send the whole thing to him, and he gets a quarter and I get a quarter, and then the buyer that wanted a half gets a half, processed the way they want it. But the key is, I'm getting away from the topic, is that most of my tools have come over time, and a lot of them weren't brand new. They were used. And it's probably going to scare you. But my toolbox and the stuff that I showed you down at the shop is probably close to a quarter of what I have. You know, I didn't want to overwhelm you, but that's what happens when you are a tool hoarder. I've got in my garage, I mean, you can see the toolboxes behind me, and they're loaded, okay? And they have all the sockets, they have all the hand wrenches, ratchet wrenches, screwdrivers, awls, you mentioned. You name it, it's probably in those two toolboxes that I have here inside the house. That's because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to walk out to the garage to get a tool if I got to work on something in the house, whether it be plumbing project or, you know, we're always building something and adding something on. So if I need pliers where I'm running, you know, 12-2 wire, or I do 90% of the stuff myself. I don't hire somebody to come do it. But out in my garage, and we also have a set down to the shop, I have the complete set of 3/4 inch drive with a breaker bar, ratchet, you know, and then I have the inch set. And you guys are probably going to never encounter where you need 3/4 or inch. When you're trying to get lug nuts off from a farm tractor, sometimes that 1 inch with the breaker bar is the way to go. Okay? Some heat and some torque and some PB blaster, but we'll get her off. But if you're just running a small engine repair shop, you're probably the biggest one you're going to encounter for a socket is like 1.5 inches. And the same thing goes for your end wrenches. You know, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches is probably as big as you're going to see. I mean, you got the blade bolt. Trying to think of the big items for size on a lawnmower or a snowblower. It's like that. It's most of it. I told you, I spend most of my time using my 1/4 inch set. I don't use the 1/2 inch much. And I'm going to take and do a complete video. Like, I don't know whether I call it the makeover of my toolbox. But I'm going to take some of the tools out of here. I'm going to take some of the tools out of my garage that are just hodgepodge everywhere. I mean, when it comes to 1/2 inch drive, I showed you my draw at the shop. I hardly have anything. In my garage, I have one great big huge big pull draw, just right full of 1/2 inch sockets. And I use them a lot here at the house on the farm equipment, but not a lot down to the shop. See, I got to have tools here too because I'm working on my equipment. And a lot of times, like when I'm working on my rake, on my balers, tractors, I pull them up close to the garage out here. And I have a roller tool chest where I can roll it out close to me where I'm working on rakes, putting new teeth on it, new pickup teeth on the balers. But it all requires tools. But I think if you asked Amos, because I know probably even Travis, and I know Jason has probably got tons, that over time you keep acquiring, all right? And then you have a lot of tools. Some people are happy and content with just what they need, nothing else. Whereas I'm kind of overkill. I always try to go above and beyond, so if I ever need that once, I've got it, right? Kind of like my father-in-law was buying the pullers. That he didn't have that, but he could use it. So let me know what you think on that. All right, so if you have any ideas on how to organize the toolbox at the shop, leave it in the comment. I'm going to start checking eBay and Amazon today, see what they've got. I've already got the matte system, the black. Because when I went to Harbor Freight last night, they had those for like $7, but every one of my trays have already got it in there. Just got to get stuff more organized. So on that note, you guys have a good Wednesday. And who knows what I'll put out this afternoon, right? All right, you guys, have a great day.